The sanctity of life. Life is precious because God gave it, therefore only God has the right to take it. The Bible says God created humans in His own image. The sanctity of life has implications in many areas. Suicide, we belong to God, life isn't ours to take. Abortion, God creates life whilst it's in the womb. Euthanasia, we must preserve, not destroy life. War, can taking life ever be justified? Capital punishment, it is for God to take a life, not us. When does life begin? Conception, when the sperm meets the egg resulting in pregnancy. Heartbeat, when the heart starts to beat around week 9 of the pregnancy. Viable, when the baby is able to survive outside of the womb, around week 24 of the pregnancy. Birth, when the baby is born, usually 40 weeks into the pregnancy. The law and abortion. The 1967 Abortion Act states 2 doctors must agree that one of the following is true. The mother's life is at risk, the well-being of an existing child may be at risk with the arrival of an additional child, the mother's physical or mental health may be at risk, there is a substantial risk the child may be born seriously handicapped. The 1990 Act states abortions cannot take place after 24 weeks unless the mother's life is at risk. Abortion, whose rights? Pro-choice or pro-abortion, the belief that a woman should be the person to decide as it is her body. A woman should not be forced to go through with an unwanted pregnancy. Stopping abortions would make women turn to illegal backstreet clinics. Pro-life, anti-abortion, in favour of protecting the life of the fetus, the belief that life begins at conception. The fetus is a living, growing thing. To destroy it is the same as killing it. True choice would consider the choice of the baby and the father not take. Euthanasia, the good death, or the act of bringing about an easy and painless death. It is mainly seen as a release for those suffering from an incurable and or degenerative disease, or for those who are in a permanent vegetative state. Within the UK there is currently no law that directly deals with euthanasia. However, the act of taking a life is dealt with under murder laws and the 1961 Suicide Act. Voluntary euthanasia. Voluntary euthanasia is carried out at the request and with the full knowledge and consent of the person who dies. Non-voluntary euthanasia. Non-voluntary euthanasia is ending the life of a person in their best interest when they are incapable of giving permission themselves. Assisted suicide. Assisted suicide is when an individual provides the means for a terminally ill person to take their own life, for example tablets or an overdose. Some doctors may give painkillers to ease suffering, knowing that the dosage needed would eventually lead to death. This is known as double effect and is the only form of euthanasia the Catholic Church will agree with. Under certain conditions, euthanasia is legal in the Netherlands, Switzerland and some parts of Australia. Arguments for euthanasia. Helping a person to end their suffering is the most loving thing to do. God has given us the ability to think for ourselves. We should therefore be able to choose. People should be allowed to die with dignity. People don't want to be a burden. Keeping someone alive artificially with medicine and machines could go against God's wishes by preventing their death. Arguments against euthanasia. Life comes from God. Only God has the right to take and give life, for example, the sanctity of life. Suffering sometimes helps people feel closer to God and understand what Christ went through. Allowing euthanasia could be open to abuse, for example murder disguised as euthanasia. Time for an exam question.